All right. I'd like to welcome everybody to WeCo's webinar learning series. WeCo is a mission-based for-profit company, and this is part of our public outreach mission to provide information about accessibility and the skills of those of us working in the industry who live with disabilities. So welcome everyone. And we're just going to get started here, which means that I have to read a kind of long disclaimer. So hold on. Welcome to Accessible Microsoft Documents Crash Course by Digital Accessibility by WeCo. Excuse me a minute. Didn't realize that the new captions that we triggered were going to get in the way of my view. So, all right. The information that is found in this presentation includes tips based upon the experiences and opinions of digital accessibility by WeCo staff and should not be construed as legal advice. Regarding the development and implementation of digital accessibility practices, it's advisable to seek the advice of qualified legal counsel. The information in this presentation is property of the Wehrman Collaborative LLC, which is our fancy name. Please ask us before distributing this information, and you can do that by simply reaching out to us at accessinfo@theweco.com. Accessibility note. This presentation includes audio description for non-visual users as part of the narration throughout. So this slide shows the title of our presentation today, include WeCo's logo and the International Association of Accessibility Professionals, or IAAP logo. And the WeCo logo is repeated on most of our slides. All right, I am going to have to adjust this a little bit. There we go. Zoom had some updates in the last few weeks. So if you are just coming into Zoom, you're going to notice a lot of changes, some really interesting, good changes. We're getting a little bit used to this too. So to introduce myself, my name is Lynn Wehrman. I am the founder and president of Digital Accessibility by WeCo. I am also a professional living with a disability. I was an very early accessible document and website specialist for the Minnesota Department of Transportation. And that's what put me on the path, along with growing up in a family with generations of cognitive disabilities, put me on this path to starting a company like WeCo. A little bit more about us is we are called Digital Accessibility by WeCo. And we are a company of digital accessibility professionals with a mission to put you in touch with subject matter experts, or SMEs, who live with disabilities. We are members of the International Association of Accessibility Professionals, and we provide our own training requirements for our people as well. This slide shows the IAAP logo, and it also shows one of our accessibility specialists using screen magnification software in a manual accessibility audit. And the words, because simulations can't replace human experience, are on the slide. WeCo offers manual accessibility audit services that can help your team understand which areas of your project do or do not meet Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG. We also provide customized recommendations and real-time coaching on how to actually fix the issues, because we believe that if you understand how to fix your own project, it's going to stay accessible over time, and that's better for us. We also offer disability-focused usability testing services, which gives you the direct feedback of trained UX testers who are also experts at living with disabilities. Both our WeCo accessibility specialists and testers are required to live with one or more disability as a part of their role description. WeCo offers various consulting packages and training options, covering both accessibility and usability. And finally, our newly released WeCollege Accessible On Demand Learning It's going to be released next week. We're so excited. Provides user-focused accessibility training for both individuals and enterprises. What you're getting in our webinars is a taste of the full courses that we offer in WeCollege. Shown on this slide are hands resting on a Braille laptop. Before we get started, we'd like to go over a few housekeeping points to keep our session on track and enjoyable for everyone. First of all, please mute yourself so that the noise in the background doesn't interrupt the webinar. We prefer that you mute yourself so that you can easily unmute yourself when it comes time for discussion. For those of you who are comfortable using the chat box, please know that this is available for comments and questions throughout the webinar. You can share them with everyone attending by selecting everyone from the drop-down list. If you need assistance from our moderators or want to ask a question that doesn't pertain to today's webinar topic or something that the other attendees do not need to know, please select WeCo moderator to reach out to the moderator. This way you won't be disturbing the learning for other attendees. And finally, just a reminder that WeCo is dedicated to making our webinars accessible to everyone. That is why we encourage you to make accessibility accommodation requests prior to the webinar on our registration form. We also offer contact information if you cannot access the registration form. Note, we are not able to honor accessibility accommodation requests that are submitted after the request deadline on the registration form. We are also not able to honor accommodation requests that are submitted to us during the course of this webinar. If you have accessibility issues during the webinar and cannot use the chat box, please reach out to Ellen, and she is one of our moderators, and her email address is Ellen, ELLEN, @theweco.com, and she will pop that into the chat box for you. This slide shows people gathered in front of a laptop computer for a webinar. So what we're going to cover today, just very quickly, is assistive technology and how it works with digital interaction in Microsoft Word and PowerPoint. What we mean by native structure in a document or things that are already built in and how that interacts with accessibility. And then we're going to give you some live examples of how to make a Word document and a PowerPoint presentation accessible. This is one of my very favorite things to teach. It was the first project I had in accessibility for the Department of Transportation, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun today. We will also end by giving you some free resources so you can go off and get going on this after you leave today. Shown is an image of 3 people listening intently to a presentation. People who live with disabilities may access electronic documents in a wide variety of ways, which can include using assistive computer devices or adaptive devices, such as the pointer stick that you're seeing in the picture, this picture of Chad, one of our testers. And he has basically a mitt on his hand, and he has a pencil inserted in it in which he is typing one key at a time. Can also include things like modified mouses, keyboards, screen readers, and speech recognition software. Other people living with different types of disabilities may not use any types of devices or software at all. They may use adaptive techniques such as typing with one hand, a single finger, or simply using the directional keys on the keyboard to navigate. There's a big difference between the document structure that we all see on the surface and the style structure that lies in the code underneath your documents. A Word document, for instance, may be extremely intricate on the surface, but have no cues or labels to convey this detail to someone who cannot see it or to their assistive device. So to them, it might appear or come across as a blank slate. This can be a lot like getting lost in a maze. So this slide shows a photo of a person getting lost in a hedgerow maze. If you can't use or have limited use of your hands, you may find it difficult or impossible to use a standard mouse to navigate a document. This means that you might depend upon techniques like keyboard commands and shortcuts, sticky keys. You may use speech recognition software, pointer stick, keyboards that are modified to allow you to select a key at a time, or mouses that you can manipulate with small movements. And this slide is showing examples of each, including Dragon Naturally Speaking software, a key guard metal key guard that sits over a keyboard, so it's easier to select one key at a time, and a track roller mouse, which is a little mouse that someone can just use a very slight finger movement in order to move a cursor. If you can't see a web page, you might depend upon screen reader software to read a web page out loud to you. If you can't see or hear, you may depend upon what we're showing in this picture, which is an active Braille display or Braille laptop, to feel the content of a page. These are very fascinating. We're going to be doing a webinar this year just on Braille laptops, so you'll be able to see that. We also have information on Braille laptop on our YouTube channel being demonstrated, but it is really a fascinating device and bridges that gap for those of us that cannot hear and cannot see. So this is one of our testers demonstrating her Braille laptop. Next, we're going to watch screen reader software in action, because I think this demonstration really brings to life the characteristics that are typically found in both documents and web pages. It demonstrates how assistive computer devices depend upon navigation points in documents, as well as websites for accessibility. So the website references that you're going to see in this presentation are easily applied to documents. Screen readers are one of the most used assistive computer devices for non-visual users. They provide access to electronic documents, but also web pages and mobile applications. Keep in mind that there are several device types used by people who do not live with sight-related disabilities that also rely upon navigation points, just as screen readers do. The video we're about to show is from the University of California, San Francisco. It has been post-production captioned, but it does not contain audio descriptions. Please let us know if you have questions about the content of this video once it has finished, and I will ask our moderators to let me know if the sound is not coming across. I believe the sound is shared. Here we go.
This is Mark Sutton from the University of California, San Francisco's IT Web Services Department. Here today with a brief tour of screen reading technology. I'm a blind person who has been using screen readers, braille writers, scanning equipment, other adaptive technologies since my childhood. What a screen reader does is, for example, I'm going to start to read this page.
Navigation 1. Link, University of California, San Francisco. Link, about UCSF. Link, search UCSF.
And what I will now do is slow down the speech rate.
Rate 80%, 75%, 70%, 65%, 60%, 55%, 50%, 45%, 40%. Link, UCSF Medical Center.
So as I was about to say, a screen reader converts what's on a computer screen into information that can be displayed through synthetic speech or braille output. And it does that by allowing you to use a computer instead of a mouse, a computer keyboard instead of a mouse. You can also use a braille display as an input device.
End of navigation.
And what it does is it cleverly determines what's on the screen and presents you that information in a way that would allow for efficient navigation of these pages. So for example, I could just keep reading.
Banner 3 items. Visited, link, image, home.
Line by line, and we could be here all day. Or I could jump to the first heading on the page.
Heading level 2, search for heading level 2, You are here. Heading level 1. Make videos accessible.
So as I'm moving down through the page, I can look for the category that interests me. And I'm just using
You are
commands built
currently on
into the
heading
screen
level-
reader. So that's all a pretty simple description of what a screen reader is all about. Now I'm going to go over and show a few examples of how that can fall apart. So I have a couple graphics on this page.
Mark Sutton hands on a MacBook Pro image.
So the first one is well described and uses an alt tag
You are currently on it.
to describe what that graphic is all about. Now we go to the next graphic,
Reader 042116.jpg.
much less useful. So it's important to use those elements. It's also true for tables. So I'm going to move to a table.
FDA approved medications. Table 3 columns, 5 rows. FDA approved medications.
So the table is pretty self-explanatory, and I'm going to move into the table.
Medicine. Approved. Column 2 of 3.
And then if I go down into the
Row,
table,
Medicine. Tolbutamide.
and as I
Column
move
1 of 3.
across,
Approved. 1975. Column 2 of 3.
we're getting the labels for the column headers and row headers. So it's important when programming tables, forms, and other elements on the web pages to use the proper HTML codes. I'll go to the
Table 3 columns.
second table on the page,
Medicine. Row 2 of 5 tolbutamide.
and as I'm in the
Tolbutamide.
table, I move across it.
Row. November 1995.
I get a date, but I don't know what that date is associated with. So it's important, as I was saying, to include proper coding tags for all these elements. These are just a few highlights of a screen reader's capabilities and some.
And that was a great example too, because the table is certainly something that we run into in documents. But if you have never seen a screen reader before, I think many people have, but we always like to show it this video in introductory courses like this, just to make sure, because it really does bring home why that navigation structure needs to be there.
Some of the ways in which.
So just as the video showed, Word documents are made accessible by applying navigation points. These navigation points are created by applying styles to the document. Using properly applied Word styles is something that few of us learn unless we're involved in something like desktop publishing. So this concept may be new to you. You're going to look at this stuff and you may have looked at it and wondered what it was for before. And that's what we hope to help you out with today. So styles that work as navigation points include headings, table of contents, bulleted lists, page numbers, headers, and footers, just to name a few to get you started. This slide shows a screenshot of various styles that can be applied in a Word document. To locate style identification in a Word document, you need to look no farther than the top of your toolbar. You'll see those boxes up there on the mid to right side of the toolbar that you may have wondered what they were for. And this is where all of your style settings are housed. These boxes include the most commonly used styles, such as normal, which is used to designate plain text, or heading 1, heading 2, and so forth. Styles label the components of your documents in the code so that screen readers and other assistive devices can identify them. You can also use the scroll option to see more than just the styles that appear by default in this toolbar. So on this slide, we are showing where the toolbar is located in the Word document. To get a feel for how this works, let's take a look at how we might identify a style component in a Word document. So this time we're going to be working with creating a title. And the title in our screenshot example says Monthly Business Expansion Report. What we've done is we've typed that title out, then we selected it with our cursor and highlighted it. And then we go up to that toolbar and click title, and instantly it is marked as a title. Now be mindful that it will change the appearance of what you have typed to match that title style within a document. We have another class that teaches you how to modify style, how to select a style set that is accessible and easy to read for low vision users. We have a lot of nuances, but this is just the basics that we're giving you today. One way that we can identify visual images for non-visual users is by using alternative text tags or alt tags. Alt tags allow you to paint a picture in the mind of your audience. When a document or a web page has images marked with alt tags, non-visual users can hear their screen reader read it out loud to them, just as Mark mentioned. This means that the individual is receiving the same kind of information as people who can see the image with their eyes. It's really important not to underestimate the importance of adding alt tags to your documents. One argument that when I used to work with bridge engineers that were doing web development is, if a person doesn't see an image, do they really need to know about it? Should we just mark these all null? And that's not really true, because images convey emotions, they convey information, and sometimes if they're charts and graphs, they can convey complex information. And everyone has a right to access that information. And people value this information, even if they cannot see it or cannot see it clearly. So here's how we add alternative text tags to images. You start by right-clicking on the image, select Edit Alt Text, enter your alternative text, and then close the panel. This slide shows an image in a Word document with the Edit Alt Text selection and box open for editing. Now, as we're getting tight on time, I was going to demonstrate how I do this in Word, but I think what I'm going to do is get through PowerPoint, and then I can just click off my presentation mode and go right into documents and show you and take your questions. I think that'll be a bit more expedient. So we're going to launch into what is a PowerPoint. And this probably has been debated since the creation of PowerPoint is what it actually is. But how we view it is that it is a software that is used to create visual presentations that provides us with opportunities to enhance how people learn through images, abbreviated descriptions, which doesn't usually happen, but that's kind of the general idea of how it was created, video and audio. So this slide shows an image of a computer screen with a PowerPoint presentation slide. The secret to PowerPoint accessibility is using the existing structure within the slide instead of removing it. So for instance, sometimes we'll get into a PowerPoint and we'll think, I want this to look radically different. So I'm just going to pull out all the text boxes and add my own in. That is what creates problems for accessibility. We're going to show you a video in a minute that demonstrates that. Instead, what we want you to do is use the existing icons in that original text box to add things like videos, charts, and images, instead of pulling them out and adding a video in without clicking on that icon. We'll demonstrate in a moment. So be sure to also add alternative text to any objects or images that you include that are not text. So the next video that I have the pleasure to show you, which will be captioned via Zoom, is a video that I actually took of myself, shot on the fly after I had gotten a newly branded PowerPoint template from our graphic artist and realized things were dreadfully wrong in it. So this video is going to basically show you what was taken out and how to add it back in. So we will be using the Zoom captions for this.
Welcome to a WeCo Accessibility Services quick tip video on what makes PowerPoints accessible and inaccessible to non-visual users. Today we're using a template that was created for us by our graphic artist to ensure that what we create blends with our visual brand. But what our graphic artist did not realize when she created the template, that she was essentially removing all of the elements that would make the template accessible to non-visual users by making it visually pleasing. There is actually a way that you can do both, and we're going to talk about that today. So when we take a look at this, we're looking at what looks like a headline and a subhead and a footer. And then we're also looking at some visual accent elements that contains our tagline, accessible, aware, independent, with small dots at the bottom. And then we're also looking at our logo. And the way that you can tell whether or not you're making a PowerPoint accessible is really not very hard at all. If you just go into the View section of your PowerPoint and select Outline View, it will show you what is actually built into the code. Okay, so on this particular slide, what we have, this is one that we've actually done some work in, is that we have the footer showing up, because what we have done is inserted a formal box that, well, used the box for the layout that already exists. So what we're talking about when we do that is when you go into Home and you go into Layout. Notice that this one is Title and Content. So what we've done is that we've used a content box here to add in our logo through the option for adding a visual, and we've added the footer in to the formal content box, so that when we click on this, you can see that we were able to add the alternative text tag there that shows up, and that we're also able to have the footer pick up in the outline view. So let's go on to the next slide. So we go on to the next slide, and when we look at this here, we see that there is nothing picking up. And that is because what oftentimes happens is that graphic artists get very, very used to basically going here and saying, okay, I want to make this look a certain way. I'm going to insert a text box. And so that's what they do. And they can take that text box and expand it to whatever size they want, and they can type what they want into it, and they can select that. Move that up a little bit so you can see it. They can select that text and say, okay, let's go ahead and make this look like a title. So we're going to want it to be 48, and let's say we want it to be bright orange. And that is how they're doing that. And this stuff is not actually picking up when you go and look at the outline view. So the easiest way that you can do this, and sometimes this is something when we get a product like this from our graphic artist, then we pretty much always know that we're going to have to go in and fix the whole thing for accessibility, is that all you have to do is just go into the Home tab and go to Layout and go, okay, well, what represents this slide? Well, this really looks like it is going to be, you can decide whatever it is you need. Is it going to be a section header? Is it going to be a title slide? We're going to call this one a title slide. And then what you can do is, I usually just click that out of the way, and you can cut it, and you can paste it right in there, and bingo, there it shows up. So, and then also we've done a little bit of advanced work on this. We went in and added alternative text tags for these as well. But you can see that is basically the work that sometimes you have to do, because graphic artists are really concerned with the visual, and many are just not versed in digital accessibility, nor is it what they do every day or think about every day.
So that gives you just an idea. and it is a few years old, and it was me running around with my cell phone. So we will be getting that reshot with our new branding and with our and with a full screen view. But it was something that I did on the fly because I was actually sending it to my graphic artist about what not to do. So, but I think that really does illustrate how easy it is for us to not understand that what we're creating visually has a code impact that people rely upon. So that's what we really hope that you take away from today.
Welcome to.
So at this point, we would be opening up for questions, but I am going to actually switch out of the PowerPoint here and into a document to give you a little more of a sense of how we edit Word documents, since I didn't get to dwell on that too much. Hold on just a moment, and I will find. What I'm showing is an exercise that we've created for one of our client trainings. And this, I'm sorry, I'm just going to hide my captions here because they keep taking up too much room. Okay. So this is a document that we purposely made inaccessible. And so the easy way you can tell, and I'm sure that there are many of you that get documents, this was my position at the state, was that everybody knew that we needed to ADA or Section 508 things, and no one knew what it was. And it was my job to figure that out. I worked with Great Lakes ADA Center, University out of the University of Chicago. I devised a plan for document conversion for our website. I learned what it was. I taught people what it was. So what would happen is I would, for instance, get like huge legislative studies that were about to be released the next day. And I would get a big file in my email box and someone would say, Section 508 that for me by tomorrow, which you can, if you've done document conversion, you can, one of them took me 6 weeks. I was ready to throw myself off the Capitol dome by the end of it, but it taught me how to convert documents. But anyway, so this is what looks accessible. And when you go into the Word document and open this up, the way you can tell that it's not accessible is when you click here. What are we showing up here? It's highlighted as normal text. This is not a title. This is normal text. It is not a subtitle. This is normal. This is not a heading. So when a screen reader encounters this document, the screen reader user may, for instance, say, command its software to read out all the headings on the page. So they understand, just like we visually peruse a document, and maybe what we're interested in the document is the survey outcomes. And the screen reader will say there are no headings on this page. So without navigation points, you're really manufacturing a lot of inconvenience for someone with a disability. So how do we add this back in? I say, this is what was given to us, and it's our job to make this accessible and get it out for our company. So we just go into the report here and we click title, and then we hit subtitle. We hit heading 1. This is an H1, and then we'll call this an H2. Okay, the other thing that we can see is that, look at these are bulleted lists, right? Anybody have an idea on if this is actually structured as a bullet list and how I would tell? And you can put it in chat and one of the moderators will read it, or you can speak up. Okay, I'll give you the clue. It's right up in here. If this was an actual bullet point, this would be lit up. Boop, there's a real bullet point. What somebody has done is they've just typed a dash next to it. So assistive technology will not read this as a bulleted list. Okay, so this is just the very basics. And I realize that the first thing that's come up for you is it's changed the look of the document a lot. I used to work a lot with documents that had to maintain a look and had to work on ways to make sure that the style stayed the same. And that involves getting into the theme and the style of the document, which is something we teach in our other training. But I just wanted to give you that basic hands-on of how that is, how that's handled. So at this point, we are going to just skip back to our presentation and open up the floor for any questions that you may have. Do we have anything in the chat box, Patty?
There is currently nothing in the chat box.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't I see if anybody is willing to volunteer why they were interested in studying this topic. What are you working on, or what is your job capacity, and what way would you use the skills for accessible Word and PowerPoint?
Lynn, we do have 2 in there at this point now.
Good.
You were just a little too quick. Carolyn has a question. Carolyn, is it easier for you just to unmute yourself and to speak?
Yes, I think so.
We hear ya.
I just wanted to make sure, sorry, my pizza's ready in the background. Was it correct? I was taking notes as you were talking, that you should put pictures in the content box of a PowerPoint, or you should not put them within like the content box of the outline?
Thanks for asking the question. I'm going to stop share and actually switch to the different view of PowerPoint to show you how we're doing this. Hang on just a minute. I've got 2 screens going here and I never know what I'm doing. I think I take this out of presentation mode here. Okay, I'm just gonna see if I can get this to share. I'm gonna open a different PowerPoint so it's less confusing for me.
And Lynn, while you're opening that up, because the other question is related to PowerPoint as well, I will let you know that. Miriam was curious if you can show how you opened up the alt text pane in PowerPoint. So,
oh, absolutely.
Also related to PowerPoint.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is our primary template that we use for crafting public webinars. So what I'm talking about might be easier just to start a new slide. So what I'm talking about inserting images is using these boxes that exist. So you go to layout and you've got these choices. You can do a title and content, section header, to content, whatever. I think to content is what a lot of people use. So you'll put a title, you put your points there and you go, okay, I wanted to put a picture in. That is what this is for here. You can choose stock images, which, by the way, Microsoft has really beefed up their stock images. They're not bad now. This one is particularly cool. I've actually used it. And you put that in. And if it is a stock image, they already have alt text written for you, which is nice. But you can also do it a couple of different ways. You can put in your own image, and that could be something that you pick out of your file. I have such a drill down to get into my own images. I'm not going to do that. But then you can also there is a mechanism. Used to be a mechanism you can pull them off the web. It's not as easy to access now because I think they're trying to discourage you pirating images, which can get you in trouble. But that's really the basics of it. You can either do it through their stock images, or you can pull it off your own computer. Well, let me just pull one really quick. Everybody's seeing my whole world here. And let's just do staff apparel. Let's say these are actually old images of uniforms we used to have. So there it is. There's one off my computer, and then I can go in. The auto generate is a picture of containing clothing. I could just put red shirt. But that's how you insert those. You can also do videos. That's what I've done for the videos in here. You can pull them out of your own files, or you can also pull them, insert them, and pull them off the web, which is what I've done. Does that answer that question? Was there a second half I needed to answer?
There was a follow-up to that, Lynn. Miriam is wondering if you can explain more how that function is different from going insert image.
It's because insert image would work as well if you use that in the toolbar. But the biggest mistake that we see people make with this is when so if we look at, just hide this toolbar. So when you go into the, I'm sorry, I'm just having trouble getting the toolbar to hide to get at this control. It doesn't hide. So, okay. But you can insert pictures. That's where you can insert them from online. But the biggest issue is when you go to the outline view of your PowerPoint, and I'm going to have to stop sharing and do it and reshare it because the bar won't hide for me. But you go to view and you go to the outline view. It should show you everything that is showing up text-wise in that code. So this is so hard to do in such a finite amount of time. So this is all of our guidance where we tell people how to use our normally we don't put this much on a slide deck, but to tell them how to structure for accessibility our PowerPoints, because we require everything to be accessible in our company. But you can see here, this is actually an interesting one. Our instructor slide has add photo feature in there. And I'm not familiar enough where we're at, but yes, you can insert, there it is, the add photo showed up. But you can insert images in a couple of different ways. So you can go ahead and do it from a stock image this way.
And Lynn, we have one new question.
Mm-hmm.
Scott has a coworker who could not attend today. Will a recording be available? It was a great introduction to what we need to start on and very much appreciated. So he's hoping to be able to share.
Absolutely. So we'll just wrap up with a few more points that will cover that. We do have free resources that are available to you, our free accessibility library and our pre-recorded webinars like this one. This one will be available in 24 hours with the Zoom recordings. We do post-production caption these so that the captions are perfect in about a week. Presentation transcript is available, but also go ahead and visit the WeCo.com for more resources, more events, and more blogs. And also next week, we're releasing WeCollege On Demand Learning. So this is where you're going to be able to take the full course and get all of the information. This was just a starter for you. You can look at the information on WeCollege eLearning, which is a tab on our website, or you can contact Patty at accessinfo.weco.com and she'll get back to you with information. So we really want to thank everybody for joining us today. Again, you can reach out to us if you have questions about what's coming up. Ellen, we have another webinar coming up next. Which one is that?
Yep, we have creating accessible website content coming up at noon Central Time on February 15th.
All right. So we hope to see you back for that. And thank you so much for joining us today, everyone.